Yeah, we did. That'll be one of the stories that I'm going to tell you tonight. First, it's an honor to be here. It's wonderful to be invited to storytelling festivals. It's an honor to be invited to the first. It's like, okay, let's make it really good. How many of you have never heard me tell stories before? Yes, that's what I figured. And so I'm going to tell you two stories. And the first story, it's a story I usually tell at the beginning because it explains who I am. It'll tell you who I am. And the story is called I'm Sean Connery. If you're lucky in your lifetime, you'll have a once-in-a-lifetime experience. You'll be in the right place at the right time. And that happened to me in my town of Evanston, Illinois, outside an ice cream parlor. But for you to understand the significance of that moment, you have to know a few things about me. When I was growing up, I learned what it was to be a man from the movies. My role models were Marlon Brando, Paul Newman, Humphrey Bogart. Think of the movies. Think of the characters. Think of the lives. Brando standing there in a ripped, sweaty t-shirt, looking up and yelling, "Stella! Stella!" But even better, and on the waterfront, sitting with his brother Charlie in a taxi cab, explaining to Charlie that he shouldn't have him throw a fight. It ruined his life. He says, Charlie, you don't understand. I could have been somebody. I could have been a contender. Instead of a bum, which facing Charlie's what I am. And Newman, with his blue-eyed good looks in cool hand blue, defying the evil prison warden. And when he does that, the prison warden looks at him and he says, "All we have here is failure to communicate." And Newman just sneers at him. Or Bogart in Casablanca, singing, I mean the music singing, "And just remember this, a kiss is still a kiss, a sigh is still a sigh, the fundamental things apply as time goes by." Oh, Bogey, trying to make sure that Ingrid Bergman gets on a plane to Lisbon. She's willing to leave her husband and stay with Bogart. They had a fling in Paris. But Bogart knows what's best for her and for her husband in the world. Her husband is a world-famous Nazi resistance fighter, and he needs his wife by him. And so he says to her, "The troubles of two people in this world don't amount to little beans." And then he chucked her under the chin, which he used to do in Paris. And he said what he used to say, "Here's looking cute, kid." Oh, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be the hero, the best man. I wanted to be handsome and dangerous. I wanted to know what's right and stand by what was right and fight for it. I really wanted to be that hero. And when I was younger, I had to certainly something. As you heard, I met my wife, sitting right here. I was 14 and she was 13, and we met in the library, so other things happened, doesn't worry. She winked at me. She looked at me. She thought I looked good, and when I looked at her, I thought she was like a combination of Jackie Kennedy and Audrey Hepburn, so I walked right over. And when I was a teenager, I used to roll up my sleeve not to put cigarettes in it. I was showing off my muscles. I was an all-city halfback on a championship undefeated football team in the city of Chicago. And if you think it's easy doing that at my size, you're wrong. They had two verbs. Whenever I scored a touchdown, it was a long run. They said, Lieberman scampered into the end zone. And if it was short, I bolted over the goal line. In a combination of a squirrel and a mustang. And once I was playing defense and a big end came out. He was over 6 feet tall. He ran right into me. We both fell on the ground. He got up and he looked at me and he said, "Where did you come from?" But But you know, you get older, you lose your man good looks. I was already middle-aged when I got into storytelling. And friends said, oh, storytelling? Okay. Why don't you do commercials? You know, you have character face. So I got headshots. I decided to visit different agencies, and finally one agency picked me up. You want to know what kind of commercials they sent me to? Are you ready for this? A Metamucil commercial. I did a few before that. That was my last one. There were 6 guys sitting around the table, and the director said, okay, here's the idea. We have a new packaging product, so I want you to pick up a packet of our rival's product, rip it open, and spill it on yourself. Which you usually do. I'm not an actor, so I'm looking around for the package, and I can't find the package. And so finally I said to him, would you like me to pretend? I said, pretend to the director. No one has ever looked at me with more disgust. He said, yes, pretend. You think when you get older, you lose your desire to be the leading man. What you lose is yourself. When I was a kid, I'd walk down the street, a girl would give me a look, I'd look back, a little flirting, or a guy would give me a funny look, and I would say, oh yeah, okay, I'm ready to go. Now I walk down the street and nobody notices me. Or if they do, all they see is bald head and gray hair. And they want to offer me a seat on the bus. But what does a man my age do for a role-model? I mean, Bogart died of lung cancer. Newman, he started selling salad dressing. And Randall, even though he was delivering tough guy lines for the rest of his life, right up to his death, I'll give him an offer I can't refuse. Who wanted to look like him? The transition from beautiful and slim to kind of bloated could only be described in his words. The horror. Horror. But don't you worry. I found my role model, Sean Connery. You might notice that I'm not 6'2" or Scottish, but take a good look. And he's perfect. He's perfect. He played 007, and this is the 50th anniversary, by the way, of 007 with a sophisticated machismo. I'm Bond. James Bond. And he got his one Oscar by standing up for what was right. He fought the gangsters with Kevin Costner in The Untouchable. He died to defeat them. And to this day, he's still playing roles, adventure roles with young women, and he's still getting the young women. He was knighted at age 60, but who cares about that? At the same time, People magazine voted him the sexiest man alive. He decided to appear in an American Express ad. They take his name on the card and they say, I'm Bond, James Bond. I loved it. I loved it. I mean, there he was, James Bond, but also he was Sean Connery. And he began to say that on the American Express ad too. I'm Sean Connery. I like that better. I fell in love with it. I loved when he said, I am Sean Connery. I began to say it all the time. I began to drive my wife crazy with it. I come in the house, I say, hello, I'm Sean Connery. I sit down to eat. I say, hello, I'm Sean Connery. I get into bed with her. Hello, I'm Sean Connery. I love saying it. I love feeling it. And that's when this magic moment happened. We're sitting outside an ice cream parlor, with our ice cream cones, and two women come walking down the street, and one stopped, and her mouth fell open, her eyes got really big, and she's staring at me. And finally she said, are you Roger Moore? Which actually was a wonderful mistake. And Roger Moore played 1907 after Sean Connery. But even better than that, it was my cue. It was the reason I've been doing since live. I now had a reason to say it. It was if I were in a play and someone said, "No, you're Roger Moore." I said, "No, I'm Sean Connery." And I'm sitting there looking at her, and Adrian is so excited. She's been hearing me say this whole time, and I looked up and I said, "No." I blew it. I blew a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And she's been teasing me ever since. But she says, you know, you only have one chance in this lifetime, but that's not true. Especially if you're a storyteller telling this story. So at the count of 3, you know what I want you to ask me. 1, 2, 3. No, I'm Sean Connery. I was in a hospital. I was working with a doctor once, and we're in a curtained cubicle, and a nurse comes by pushing a guy, and she looks in and she says, "Hi, Sean." And I thought, "Oh, wow, where did she hear this story?" So she comes back, I'm about to ask her, and she said, "Did anyone ever tell you you look like Sean Connery?" The second story I'm going to tell, now don't get excited. It's called My Mother's Love Life. Now my mother used to ask, she's gone now, she used to say, "Tell the audience that I gave her permission to tell this." Permission? This was her favorite story. I interviewed her, and this is the story that came out of the interview. When I was going to a festival, she'd say, "Are you going to tell my story?" I said, "Yeah." As soon as I get back, the first question on the phone, "Did they like it?" So she loved this story. My mother was 78 when her boyfriend Wally died. I was nervous at the funeral. She seemed, upset. She was talking too loudly. She wanted to see the body even though the casket was closed. She had met him 8 years earlier at the age of 70. Her friend Ida ushered her into Fluky's hot dog stand. They sat down, and Ida tilted her head. She said, "See that man over there? He lost his wife a year and a half ago, and he's very lonely." My mother said, I looked over, and there was this little man, bald head, gray hair, a little pot belly. He was eating lunch with one of his children. She said, "But the thing I really noticed, he had beautiful blue eyes." Ida called him over, sat him down, and said to him, "Okay, give her your phone number." So she said to my mother, give him your phone number so he can ask you out." My mother said, "I was so mortified, I gave him the number just to get rid of him." A few days later, she got a call. The man said, "Listen, I'm not sure you're going to remember me, but you gave me your phone number a few days ago." My mother said, "Remember you at my age, how many men don't give a number out to them?" And that was their first date. And I know that because she called me to tell me. Now think about this, for a communication from a Jewish mother. She said, "In case you're going to call me tonight, I'm not going to be home." I said, "What?" She said, "I'm going out on a date." I said, "Fine, have a great time." A week later, she calls again, the same thing. "In case you're going to call me tonight, I'm not going to be home." I said, "Another date, Mom?" She said, "Well, I'm going with my new friend to Amish country in Indiana. It's a long way, and so we're going to stay over." So I told my wife, she got hysterical, she got on the phone. She said, "Ruth, are you going to take one motel room or 2? And my 7-year-old mother said, "Why should we waste the money?" She said, "He's got everything I want in a man. He's got his own teeth, he likes to eat, and he can drive at night." She said, "If I were 10 years younger, I'd really be enjoying this." And so began the third love of my mother's life. Men always were interested in her. She was a beauty. Eastern European kind of look beauty, like Ingrid Bergman, blonde hair, blue-gray eyes, high cheekbones. We have a wonderful picture of her when she was a teenager with her hand on her hip in a bathing suit, kind of staring at the camera. And she liked men. She liked to go dancing in Humboldt Park in Chicago. But she wanted me to know that she wasn't wild. And to prove that, she said, in my sweet 60, the only thing we drank was Coke. And there was a boys' club over, and when the lights got dim, there was kissing in the corners. That night, her cousin slept over, and her cousin said to her, Ruth, I think I'm pregnant. My mother said, what? She said, well, tonight, when Betty was kissing me, he stuck his tongue in my mouth. Is that how it happens? And her mother said, I had no idea. You can imagine two 16-year-old dummies not knowing how you got pregnant. At 20, she knew she was pregnant. That was a big year for her. Not only did she get married and get pregnant and have a baby, she was engaged twice. She was engaged to a man named Pete Brown, who ran a hot dog stand. And he went on a fishing trip for 2 weeks. When he got back, she was already married to my father. He swept her off her feet. He was a gambler, and he had this air of danger about her. And she said, oh, you should have seen him. He dressed so nice. Fedora, nice suits, hanky in the pocket, pinky ring. He looked like Capone. My father had a little bit of a belly. And she said, he took me dancing every night at the Aragon Ballroom. It was the big ballroom in Chicago. She said, you walked in, and there were lights in the ceiling. They looked like stars. There were trees planted along the edge. And when we walked in that first time, everyone crowded around. They wanted to see Sammy's new girlfriend. And after you dance, you'd come up and sit on the balcony and look down at the dancers. And one night while they were dancing, he said to her, I'm glad you could dance because I couldn't marry a woman who couldn't. Oh, very cruel. It was so hard for me to think of my father actually saying that. My father. But he swept her off her feet, and she took a chance on the gambler, and she won 3 children. I'm the baby. Even when I was 60, that's what she called me. Baby, here's my baby. Well, my father finally died after many, many years, and she decided to go out to California to visit a lady friend. She gets in California, and the lady friend says, I know where Pete Brown is going to be tonight, the man that she was engaged to. My mother said, all of my life, I had this fantasy that he was pining away from me. She said, that all dialed up. We went to the affair. I knew who he was immediately. I walked up, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and he turned around, and she said, so, do you know who I am? And he looked at her and said, Esther Drucker? She said, Esther Drucker? Didn't look anything like Esther Drucker. She was a tiny little woman with dark hair, pitch face, Esther Drucker. She said, so much for fantasies. I don't know how, he didn't even know who she was, because you call a photo album, and she changes, but she's there, the saucy teenager. And then all of a sudden, she gets married, and her face softens, and it's pictures of her with me and my brothers in a park. And then she becomes a platinum blonde with a ponytail. And then she turns into the grandmother that, she became. She began to wear glasses, and very thick glasses. Her hair fell out. She had to wear wigs. But there was still her. You could still see her. After my father died, and she came back, a man named Maury started to court her. And they decided that they were going to live together. They didn't get married because my mother said, I lose your father's Social Security. And they lived together for 11 years, and then he died. And she was manless until she met Wally, if you don't count Mr. Coleman. That's what she called him. To me, she never said Leonard. She said Mr. Coleman. He was a man from the old neighborhood. And when his wife died, he began to take her out on dates. But it was strange kind of dates. He would take her to the cemetery to visit their spouses. I'll tell you the truth, it was a strange kind of double date. She sent him a birthday card on his birthday. He called up. He said, how do you know it was my birthday? She said, how do I know? I've seen it on your tombstone. She said, I couldn't get interested in it romantically. He didn't like to eat. She said he could make soup with a chicken leg and a carrot and a potato and an onion. What kind of soup is that? And then she met Wally, and I told you, they fell in love. They decided they were going to travel around the country. And then he woke up one morning and couldn't stand it. Tumor on the spine. Instead of traveling then, she moved in with him and tended him for 3 years until he had a stroke. They took him to the hospital. I brought her to the hospital right after, and we came in. She touches him. She said, oh, it's so cold. So it doesn't even feel like skin. And Wally was desperately trying to tell her something, but he couldn't get the words out. She handed him a pen, but he couldn't even hold the pen until she pressed her ear real close to his lips to hear what he was saying, and he kissed her. She said, kiss me? He kissed her. And then he died. And that was the funeral I was telling you about at the start of the story. Now, in the Jewish religion, they call it sitting Shiva. For a week, people come over and they say prayers with you. But really, it's to have people around. They bring food. They take care of things. And now, it was on the last night of Shiva when my mother came up to Adrian and she said to me, guess what just happened? I said, what? She said, you see that man over there? He just asked me out. But he was a friend of Wally's. He told me, you're irresistible. And I'm sorry, Adrian said, you're irresistible. And she said, that's just what he said. Didn't work out. His idea of like a good time was playing double solitaire. She said, double solitaire at our age? Who wants to do that? You gotta fly around and have a good time. How many more years do we have? I gotta marry a younger man. And then she said, whatever. And I was looking at her laughing, and I thought to myself, even if there isn't a fourth one in the wings, here's a woman who loved men and loved being loved by them. A woman who loved life. And she was going to be just fine. She had a stroke, she recovered, but she had nosebleeds, and because she was taking Coumadin. And sometimes she couldn't stop them, she had to go to the hospital. So she called me up, she said, Sydney, take me to the hospital. I said, Mom, call 911. She's like 10 minutes from the hospital, I'm 30 minutes from her. She says, no, Sydney, you take me. Okay, so I would always take her. I'm at a festival. I come back after the festival, Adrian says to me, your mother had to go in the hospital this weekend. So I called her up. I said, Ma, how'd you get to the hospital? She said, I called 911. To tell you the truth, it was a pleasure. These young men came